Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News Daily live stream. My name is Dakota Christensen, and today I am joined by the one and only Alexa Lavoie. Alexa, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's Friday. The world isn't, actually burning, so I'm doing all right. Could be
Yeah,
far
and
worse.
the weather is pretty good.
Yeah,
I don't know for you, but the weather is good.
Oh yeah, weather's been great. Yesterday it was beautiful, almost 20 degrees out. So that I don't even know what that is Fahrenheit for anyone who doesn't do Celsius. 20 degrees out though, sunny. Went for a nice long run yesterday. Sat outside, enjoyed the sun. It was great.
Okay, me, I was really happy to see 2 degrees this morning.
Yeah. I think right now it's something like 10 or 12 degrees here in Toronto, so it's still pretty nice for. I guess we're getting towards late March. Spring is on its way. I'm excited about that. Weather is nice, relatively. No matter what's going on in the world, summer and spring are on their way. So,
Yeah, we can feel it.
yeah, exactly. Well, for those of you who are watching in on this and are new to what we're doing here, essentially, we run through the news of the day, talk about what's going on, give our reactions and commentary, and we kind of fill you in, have a good conversation, and you can interact with us by sending us hyper chats, super chats, Rumble rants, whatever they call it on whatever platform you're watching. We are currently on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Super U, and Getter, I believe, are all the platforms we're on. So feel free to hit us up with a chat if you'd like to have us read off on our screen there for you, whatever you have to say. And essentially, Alexa, what do you say we dive right in, start talking about what's going on in this crazy world of ours?
Oh my God! Do you want to start with Quebec,
I think
the province?
Yeah, because again, we definitely have a lot to talk about from your end. I'm very interested to hear everything you have to say about Quebec. I think the first thing we're going to talk about on the docket here is Leah Thomas, the trans swimmer, winning. Because this has been all over the internet right now. The fact that Leah Thomas has won the NCAA championship, I believe. Yeah, first trans woman to win an NCAA title, which is wild stuff. There's so much to dive into here. I mean, we ourselves have picked through this quite a bit at Rebel News. We have this past year, we released the book Unsporting, talking about trans women or, biological men competing in women's sports and all of the issues relating to that. But, I mean, what are your thoughts, Alexa, as a woman on this? If you're competing in sports, I know you're a bit of an athlete yourself in a few areas. How would you feel if you were competing on a swimming team here and you have this biological male come in, formerly William, Leah Thomas, as the swimmer now identifies as Leah? How would you feel being beat out by this biological male and, losing all hope of competing as you would? I mean, I feel really badly myself for all of these female athletes who, some of them lost their chance. The top spot was taken by someone who has a very clear biological advantage, I would say.
I don't want to say that women are less powerful, but it's a fact. Like, our body is made that we have less muscle, and we are, for some of the women are incredible. They are really strong and everything. So I don't want to put everybody in the same package, but for most of the women, our body is not as strong and as powerful as a man's body. So of course we need to work way more to reach that level of performance. So maybe I would say it's kind of unfair, but in the same time, I'm happy for that person because he probably work a lot and probably suffer from critic and everything. So it's good for this person because he's actually reached what he wanted in life. So I cannot be mad at that person. But in the same time, I just find that a little bit unfair for the other woman who worked so hard and think that they were all do a competition for all the women together, and woman who was a man arrive, and of course he have like an advantage on these women. So I don't know. I'm a little bit like skeptical about all of this. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at some of the other details there, like the fact that Leah Thomas previously, well, still William Thomas, competing in men's swimming for 3 years, was I think like 400th in the league there. So like you go from being 400th in the men's division, then you transition, you identify as a woman, and then you go and compete in the women's league, and you immediately are taking championship titles. It seems like such an issue there. And the person who came second, she was like a silver medalist in the Olympics. And, as far as I see it, she is the real champion there, whoever came second there. Because beating out everyone else by a margin of more than 5 seconds, and, after placing 400th in, competing with the men's, like, not even to dive into any like real trans issues in that, but I think it's super unfair to all of the women to have, because we carve out this space, right? And we say this is for women to compete. This is, the female space where they have to actually compete amongst themselves. And as soon as you start letting in biological men in there competing, I mean, regardless of any other, trans issues there, it's just, you cannot deny biological facts there. And it just seems so unfair to these women. And you see all these people who otherwise would be hardcore feminists, right? Saying, we need to stand up for women's rights, who are then saying, oh, well, we need to stand up for trans rights here and let this person compete, but then it's kind of destroying this space for women. So the way I see it, if we let this continue, women's sports is not going to exist in the way that it has leading up to now. If we continue to let that happen, because then all of the women's champions will be trans women, and that's a very dicey issue, I'd say.
Oh my God, it's really tall as well.
Yeah.
But
picture really does say 1,000 words.
But like it's not for nothing that on some sport, like they are doing a range of weights, a range of by criteria for not giving advantage to one or another one. So they try to put like the same level of performance together. That is fair play. But now it's just like you have like a champion from a league joining another champion league, but for lower level, because it's a woman level.
Yeah, exactly. It's serious issues there. So I mean, that's what's been kind of front page of the internet this morning, is just kind of how crazy this is going on here. That because I mean, Leah Thomas has been in the news for a little while now, but finally reaching the top spot in the NCAA, pardon me. But so that's kind of crazy. But hey, that's the crazy world we're living in.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. So I mean, moving forward now, I know you had so much to talk about when it comes to Quebec and all of the stuff going on there. There are a few headlines you were sending me this morning. So, I mean, tell me, what is going on here? What should people be paying attention to right now as far as things going on with Quebec? Because I know the rest of Canada, there's kind of that language barrier. It's almost like this blank curtain over Quebec, and it's a lot more difficult for those of us who aren't in English-speaking Canada to actually pay attention to everything, because not everything makes it through sort of that language wall and actually gets published in English newspapers. So what are the big issues of the day right now in Quebec? Fill us in.
You have a lot.
Where to begin?
I will start. Where to begin?
Pick a headline.
Of course, they removed the vaccine passports recently on the 12th of March, and they are talking about removing maybe the mask as well in April. But now they talk about lifting the emergency state, but with a bill, of course. And this bill is horrible. All the opposition say that is actually the worst scam that the premier tried to do. It's actually a bill who actually wants to keep the power. He wants to keep the power of the emergency, but and when the health minister, sorry, I'm just trying to have it in front of me so I can actually talk to you better about it.
Yeah.
But when the health minister say, so the measure that we will remove we cannot come back to it. Do that make sense to you? Like this, it's like, oh, but if we remove the mask during that law, we cannot go back and put it back.
Yeah. Yeah, like actually removing the legislation, the emergency powers, right?
Yeah, but it say that this law will keep the power until December, 31 of December. But the measure, the law is really not well right. So what he's saying, like, is like all the measure that is there when the law will pass, they will be effective until the 31 of December. But if they remove one of the decree as the mask, they cannot put it back after they remove it.
Okay, interesting.
But they keep the fact that if you don't follow the rule, they can fine you $1,000 to $6,000, and
wow,
you need to permit all the minister and the government to have access to all information. If they ask for you, all your information, it can be in anything like bank, anything. Okay, and if you don't agree, you can be charged for $1,000 to $6,000 fine too. And you know that in Quebec they want to install, but actually the bill has passed, the bill 6, that now is the law of Eric Kerr, for the cyber security and numeric. So they want to like now begin like that everybody have a numerical identity, so you can pay and you will have your wallet just with your face. You don't need like any paper on you anymore. So that make me a little bit scared when you know that you need to give your information or you will be fined.
Yeah. So, okay. So just so I have this clear, in order to put an end to the current state of emergency and an end to all the current restrictions, Quebec is introducing a new bill that is saying that as they're ending this, they're giving the government additional powers. And if you don't comply with government requests to breach certain privacy issues, like if you don't give them your information or sign up for certain things, then you yourself can be fined further. And so essentially they're giving themselves additional powers in a separate area as sort of a trade-off as they get rid of the current pandemic restrictions and the state of emergency. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and as well, they give them the right to give, again, untendered contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big issue because now they just find out that they just give during the pandemic $13 billion of untendered contract in Quebec.
Yeah, and that's all throughout the pandemic, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's great. So let's see the headline here: $17.4 billion in contracts without calls for tenders. So essentially handing out government contracts to whoever they want without the normal bidding process of people having to compete for these contracts. They're just unilaterally handing out billions of dollars worth of contracts to whatever vendors they want. That's
and so
crazy.
So that's great. And
money.
Before like the CAQ, that CAQ, it's Coalition Avenir Québec, it's the Legault government.
Yeah.
Before he get elected, it was about 1.4 billion that the maximum that they saw before. That's nothing like to compare now.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. So to sum up that right now, so as far as things are going in Quebec, you have sort of teasing the end of things, but at the same time bring in new legislation to give the government additional powers. There's still threat of incredible fines under extraordinary emergency-like powers. And at the same time, they're trying to make permanent this ability to just hand out untendered, hand out government contracts without competing for them. So just unilaterally handing out government contracts to whomever they would like. And also trying to really further implement a digital ID to track people. I saw something about students there that was in there. Yeah. Was that something else? Like trying to track students as they go on the bus and that sort of thing. Like, tell me more about that digital ID thing, because I saw you talking about that earlier.
So a lot of people are really angry because now a new pilot project, it's giving QR code to children that they will have on them. And when they will enter in the bus, they have like camera and scan, and they will scan the QR code of the children. And so like now the parent will be allowed, like they can be tracking their children on their phone and see where they are going. But that is a pilot project for what? They say that is for the safety of the children. I don't think the safety of the children is threat on inside of the bus. It's when they wait for the bus outside or they are going outside of the bus that maybe can have a danger. But when you're inside and you're sitting in the bus, where is the danger of the children there?
And so the government is essentially telling everyone, do not get rid, like the QR code is not ending, even though we're not enforcing a vaccine passport, still keep that on your phone because we're still going to use that for you to check in places and make sure the government can track you. I mean, like, it sounds, it's like, well, if the government wanted to track us, they can track us anyway through our phones. But I mean, the use of the QR code, like going no matter what, and they're going to continue using it for other purposes, specifically for government check-ins and tracking people and having it all in one system.
So they actually just specified to don't delete the QR code. And they are talking about the fact that maybe in the fall, we'll probably have a 6th wave. And we need to be able to handle it. And I'm just asking, like, and they were saying, like, oh, if we want the vaccine passport back, we will need to activate again the emergency state power. But I'm actually pretty sure everything is there. Everything is in place. Like, all the app is there. The QR code is there. I don't know why they don't want people to just erase it and destroy all the information related to the QR code.
Yeah, I see. So they're poisoning it. They're keeping everything in place, essentially saying, oh, well, you never know. 6th wave could come. They're ready to crack back down. I mean, yeah, whether it's, COVID or not. So basically everyone is celebrating right now. They're either distracted by a war going on in Russia, Ukraine, or and simultaneously celebrating the fact that restrictions are all coming to an end when it looks like we're going to be hit again once summer winds down, right?
Yeah, and they are talking about the 4th booster now.
Yeah, I saw that. So booster number 4, which, I mean, I imagine we're still on YouTube. And so YouTube doesn't like anything talking about vaccines. I was about to say something about that. I saw a headline, a study we were just talking about earlier. I guess we'll have to wait until we're off of YouTube to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of crazy as far as Quebec's done. I mean, that's, Quebec has always been a little extreme compared to all of Canada, but that kind of rings true to, just a little more explicitly stated. But what is going on in a lot of provinces now still, too, I imagine, is that like all of the infrastructure is still there. All of the emergency legislation is still in place. They're starting to roll back restrictions. They're announcing ends to the vaccine passport, announcing ends to mandatory masking. But all of these provincial governments still have their emergency power still in place. The current government of each province can still issue emergency orders. They still have those powers, and we're still completely at their mercy without any sort of debate in the parliament.
Do you know what they smell?
No.
Election.
Of course. Yes. Yes, indeed. I mean, yeah, because in Ontario, we have our election June 2nd or 20 something. There's a 2 in there, but sometime in June we have our election here in Ontario, which absolutely I was saying, yep, Doug Ford's ready to open up for election. Is there an election going on in Quebec too coming up, or?
Yeah, it would be. I think us is a little bit later. I think it's October.
Okay, yeah, it's election season, no doubt about that. I mean, in the States too, in November they have the midterms going on, so that'll be interesting to see. But you know what? There'll be
and the leader of the Conservative Party too. It will be soon.
True. Yeah, for federally, for the Conservative leadership, which we've been all over covering that. Yeah, that's in September. So lots of potential change in the air, and it's interesting to see how everything is kind of switching up right now, leading up to all these elections. So that'll be fun to see. So what else is on our list you were talking about? So we talked about QR code pilot project, all those contracts, all the fun stuff in Quebec. Then there's the Canadian government border. So I'm sure many would have seen this. This was news from the other day. But the fact that the government the federal government has lifted the requirements for mandatory testing and quarantine for those who are vaccinated for international travel. So if you're unvaccinated, you still can't get on a train or a plane or, travel even domestically within Canada. But if you are vaccinated and you're looking to travel outside of the country, you no longer have to do the testing or the quarantine, which I suppose is good news there. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. It would be wonderful if we just, followed suit with other countries and put an end to all of this. But I guess we're slowly pulling it back federally. I mean, what do you think, Alexa?
Again, it's ostracization, it's discrimination. Like, we are one of the really rare country that the unvaxxed cannot leave their own country. Yeah. And when we look at British Airways, that they are lifting the mask mandate, and when I look at Air Canada, that people will be fired on the 2nd of May because they didn't receive their second shot. But what's going on in Canada? Like, we cannot leave, the people cannot leave their country. And when they come back, they need to quarantine 2 weeks, but they cannot even leave.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's because we were looking at, I believe it was the UK. I think it was last week. They announced they were ending all travel restrictions whatsoever. People can come into the country freely. They can leave. They're dropping all their main restrictions across the UK. And that was kind of big news there. It's like, well, that's great. If you wanted to, you could go travel there, not have to quarantine, travel back. But wait, if you are Canadian, if you're an unvaccinated Canadian, you can't travel at all, go on any plane. You can't leave the country or come back without having to quarantine for 2 weeks. So even if you're to drive into the United States and then drive back, you still have to do a 2-week quarantine. I mean, just across the border. It's kind of insane, the fact that we're still here, even when we're now dropping domestically. Finally, after 2 years, we're dropping all the mask mandates. We're now dropping the vaccine passports in all of the provinces. They've all announced. On Monday in Ontario, we're dropping our mask mandate. We've already dropped our vaccine passport. But still, federally, all these things are clinging on to it as much as they can. It's just crazy, the fact that they refuse to let go.
And it's really interesting because, in March 2020, I was in Africa and I was with people from UK with me. Yeah. And UK was banned. It was a country that was banned. You were not allowed to take a flight anywhere because your country were banned, but Canadian was free. And when we look like now, UK is like, oh, we lift everything, but Canada is still like in a jail for some people. Yeah,
it's crazy. Like, if you've not taken the shots that the government has told you to take, you can't travel at all still, which is pretty incredible. Again, I'm not sure if we're still on YouTube. There's stuff I would say about the vaccines, but I will abstain. I will abstain from making comments about the vaccines at the moment because I think we are still going on YouTube, and we've kept it pretty YouTube safe thus far. But I mean, actually, on the topic of censorship there, because we've seen, I think it was last week they first announced it. Maybe it was earlier this week. I've got no concept of time when it comes to these headlines. It all blurs together. But sometime in recent history, the Canadian government announced that they are banning all streaming on Canadian airwaves, of RT, Russia's state broadcaster, any Russian news sites. Citing concerns about Russian propaganda going on with the war in Russia and Ukraine. And that was very concerning, I thought, just in terms of censorship. It's like, sure, yes, it's the Russian state broadcaster and it's propaganda. I would say the same thing about our own state broadcaster, the CBC. It's just propaganda for our government. But now we are seeing advocacy groups calling for all Russian websites of any kind. Anything coming from Russia should just be banned. It shouldn't be allowed in Canada. And so that I thought was a little concerning, seeing that headline there. And the government hasn't announced anything on that front, but it seems like, why not? Why wouldn't the Trudeau government go ahead and say, yeah, because hating Russia is very much in vogue right now. It's a very popular thing to be saying, you know what, down with anything Russian. We've been boycotting anything involving Russia, if it's Russian liquor, if it's Russian TV, if it's, even Russian people have been getting a lot of hate thrown on them very unfairly because it's the Russian government and Vladimir Putin who's been doing the invading and not anything to do with the Russian people themselves, especially if you're a Russian Canadian. But I mean, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this, Alexa, in terms of, because the censorship, it seems like it's so okay right now for us to say, you know what, we're going to ban all the Russian TV and all the Russian websites, but then that just opens the door, paves the way for more clearly to say, all right, we're going to be banning this next and this, and you know what, you're not allowed to see that because that's misinformation and disinformation, as we've heard all about from our friend Justin Trudeau, haven't we?
Why you have always like someone that we need to bully?
Yeah.
Now it's Russian. Before it was on Vax. It's always someone that we take apart, and you need to hate them.
Yeah.
Like the media tell you who you need to hate, who you need to like, who you need to follow, what you need to believe. Stop it. Let people decide by themselves.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there. It's George Orwell's 2 Minutes of Hate, where, you know, in the novel 1984, you go there, you get the masses together, and then you have the subject of the day, the victim, the person you're meant to hate. And, you know, for 2 minutes of the day, the state tells you you have to hate this person and to, you know, scream, let it all out, insult them, you know, berate them, go all in against this one person for 2 minutes, let out your hate. And then that way, you're no longer angry at the state who's causing all of your problems. You have the scapegoat. But I mean, it's so true. It's first before it was the unvaccinated, and I mean, it's still very much to a degree the unvaccinated. But now the real evil boogeyman is Russia, and you know, hate on Russia, hate the Russians, boycott Russia, stand with Ukraine, all of that. It's being weaponized to just direct people, and it's amazing to see the switch flip, right, in terms of. Literally one day, it's all about the pandemic, it's all about the vaccine, and then suddenly, oh, the war is going on, Russia-Ukraine. Suddenly, everyone forgets about all that. We're all focused so intently on, all right, guys, the big battle we have to fight is to stand up and fight against Russia and hate everything to do with Russia and Russia. And then there's a significant amount of hate coming from this, like actual Russian people who are suffering from this, Russian-owned businesses who are being boycotted by people, and they have nothing to do with this invasion just because they are Russian people or they're from Russia. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I mean, I'm just worried because there's that, and then there's just the fact that there's this censorship itself going on, and Trudeau seems to be waging this war against, you know, disinformation and misinformation, and that's, you know, something we need to be focusing on because it's so dangerous for our democracy, and that just seems like an excuse for him to censor his political enemies now, and I feel like that's a battle we're going to be fighting here at Rebel News, because we know that Trudeau very much does not like us, very specifically. He's called us out. You yourself, Alexa, had your chance to ask him that question at the leadership debate, and he gave a piece of his mind to all of us as to what he thinks of us at Rebel News. So I don't know. It's worrisome stuff because the government has a lot of power to control information right now, and it seems like it's grabbing more and more of that power to censor us further and to control what people are seeing. And I mean, that way you're able to control what people think.
But the fun fact is, like, now they are banning like every information that's coming from Russia. So like that, you don't have any narrative that's coming from Russia. That story, that side of the story. But in the same time, like, all you want to control one narrative. It's like when you have nothing that traps you on the side. So it's the perfect game for them. The perfect game.
Yeah, and like what you're just saying there, it's interesting to think that when you're saying you're banning everything coming from Russia because of, you know, Russian propaganda and disinformation, when we ourselves have seen more than our fair share of Ukrainian propaganda. I mean, whether or not you believe that Ukraine or Russia are the ones in the right, I mean, it seems pretty clear to me. Ukraine got invaded. Ukraine is the one that's in the right here. Putin is in the wrong. He's doing the invading. But still, Ukraine has there's so much wartime propaganda coming up, stuff like the ghost of Kiev and that one island that turned out to be a hoax, the soldiers on the island getting invaded, and, you know, different numbers coming out about casualties that have been completely wrong, and all these sort of war stories or clips from video games or from movie scenes swirling around. And that's all been pro-Ukraine propaganda to sort of bolster the narrative that Ukraine is doing great in this war and they're fighting back against Russia. But somehow all of that, even after it's debunked a week later, but yeah, all of that you saw was a complete lie. But because it's coming from the Ukrainian side, that's okay. That sort of misinformation and propaganda is no problem whatsoever, and we let that through because it helps Ukraine and, you know, free speech and all of that. But when it comes to the Russian side, we have to ban everything because it's such an atrocity to allow any sort of misinformation or propaganda come through that we need to just ban everything there. And it just, you know, I think it shows double standard. And I think it really speaks to the fact that they're willing to censor anything that is in their political interest to do so, and they're more than happy to let through anything that helps support them politically, even if it is that same level of disinformation or misinformation, the terms Trudeau is so fond of using when censoring anything he doesn't like. It just, it seems very hypocritical to me. And it's very concerning, I think. I think that's sort of our next huge battle is going to be the fight for free speech in times of our digital age and what's being censored and what isn't. I mean, it's already a battle, but I think it's going to get worse.
But what is actually make me scared a little bit is like everybody who had like one vision of the pandemic, now they are all in the same vision of the world without really asking themselves, do I have the good information? Do I'm thinking right? Do I'm well informed? No, I just follow. And it's getting really worse in Quebec when you think about the fact, okay, fine, they removed the Russian vodka, Russian liqueur, but it's already buy.
Yeah, exactly. It's pure virtue signaling.
Put in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it serves no purpose to say, okay, we've already purchased this vodka, let's dump it down the drain. It's a show of support, like I guess, but it's just more anti-Russia virtue signaling. But then
just give it to me.
Yeah, you'll take it. Well, but that makes me think, because I was talking about this with someone the other day. The fact that, in terms of where you're getting your information from and, whether or not you can really judge for yourself, when you think about it, in our current day of information, we're able to see all this stuff coming from both sides. If you're kind of tuned into the internet, if you're on Twitter, you can see stuff coming from Ukraine, stuff coming from Russia, people debunking a lot of false hoaxes and narratives and government propaganda. But if this was, say you were back in the original Cold War of US versus Russia, there was no digital age, there was no internet as we know it. And so you weren't able to get anything other than what your government really provided you. You had your sort of mass media and what the government message was. And so the reality then for people was whatever the government told them it was. And they didn't have sort of that ability to go and research for themselves to the degree that we do now. There's a lot more to sift through. There is a lot more fake news and misinformation and propaganda out there. But it's just interesting to think that right now we have the ability to see all this stuff coming through and be able to say, oh, no, that's just more government propaganda coming from Russia or coming from Ukraine. It's wartime propaganda, or this is what the government is trying to support in this narrative. But for anyone who's living decades ago, they didn't have that. Whatever was, printed in the mass media, whatever was the messaging of the day, was just accepted as objective fact. And I don't know, it just got me thinking. It's interesting to think of where we are. We are able to be a lot more skeptical now and to be able to kind of, look at all sides and hear from so many different areas right now because we have access to so much information, whether it's true or not.
And especially like how many words happened in the past. I don't remember one time that they say we will ban this liquor from this country, or we will do this, or remove the name of this person because, or in the past I didn't see any of that. That it's just too much. When it's too much, you have something that they want to hide. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like it's fair that in a lot of the major wars, a lot of this stuff was done sort of to extreme ways. What it reminds me of seeing all the anti-Russian hate, especially, my earpiece falling out here, especially directed to people who are Russians living in Canada or Russian-owned businesses. It kind of reminded me of World War II in terms of the Japanese internment camps. There was all this skepticism and hatred towards Japanese Canadians and Japanese Americans who were just of Japanese descent living in North America, who were put in internment camps because they were concerned about them being spies or concerned about the Japanese government. When I look at people today who have been, a lot of the stuff we're doing to Russians, we're banning Russian cats from competing in cat competitions, and we're banning Russian athletes, and we're boycotting Russian-owned businesses, say Russian Canadians or Russian Americans who are taking heat from this. I think there was a Russian piano player, did you see that, who was being boycotted by people and all this stuff. And there is actual hate being directed towards people of Russian heritage who are, living in North America. that kind of makes me think, guys, like, did we not realize that this thing back in World War II we were doing of directing hate towards Japanese North Americans because of what the government of Japan was doing? Like, you do realize they're not one and the same, and that was bad. Remember that? That wasn't good. We shouldn't be, judging and hating people because of what the government of their native land was doing. It just, yeah.
But now the biggest problem is the nuclear.
Yeah.
It's a biological weapon.
Mm-hmm.
They know that they have biological weapon. They have a laboratory and they have weapon for it. And they know that they have nuclear as well weapon. So what are we doing there?
Yeah, and that's another thing, because I see people saying that if this is sort of leading up, if they're comparing Putin's Russia right now to Germany during World War II and saying, guys, we can't appease, remember when Germany took Austria, and that was the first big thing. You can't be appeasing. We have to step in now. We have to fight back. We have to stop Putin before he keeps going. You do realize, though, guys, back then there wasn't the threat of nuclear war. This is another factor we kind of have to consider. Everyone calling for the no-fly zone over Ukraine, of course, I think very rightly so, we've been seeing a lot of our leaders saying, I'm not sure we want to get pulled into a World War III right now. But there is also the other factor of we are at the moment nuclear superpowers here who are kind of preparing to knock heads. And that is a very important factor I think people are forgetting, is that to declare war on Russia right now is to have one superpower, nuclear superpower, be declaring war on another nuclear superpower. And that's when things get dicey. And of course, everyone's calling for de-escalation and stepping back. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this, but there is some worrying stuff there. And like you were saying about the biological labs in the Ukraine, that's a whole other issue of in Ukraine we have these United States owned or funded or at least affiliated biological weapons labs that they were denying and then saying that, okay, yes, they're ours, but this, and now they're just saying, okay, yeah, everything you've said about them is true, and we need to make sure that stuff doesn't happen there with Russia invading. We don't want it falling into Russian hands or something bad happening there. So there's a lot of very dicey stuff going on. There's just so much. It's a big mess in terms of trying to
especially when
the info.
Especially when we see the Prime Minister of Ukraine begging for the no-fly zone.
Yeah.
And some people say, yeah, we need to help them. And the other ones say, do you realize the consequences of doing that? Mm-hmm. Are you ready if they use nuclear nuclear weapon? What do you promise us that you have a B plan?
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly.
Nobody have B plan.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's I don't trust any of these people in our government right now who are talking about this. It's just, I don't think anyone wants World War III. We certainly don't want nuclear war. We prefer to all stay alive and live peacefully and not have all this craziness stuff going on. It's tough. There are so many comments I'd make about it, but I'm also not the most informed on the topic, and that's why we don't talk about it so much here at Rebel News. I've seen a lot of people saying, come on, guys, why don't you talk about this more? We're just guys, we're not experts on geopolitics. We're not experts on Russia. We're not experts on Ukraine. So, we'll give you our 2 cents here and there, but we don't mean to report on it as if we're experts in terms of the geopolitics of Russia and Ukraine and everything that's going on. Plus, that's the thing. It's half the time I see these headlines coming out of there, and then I've seen so much where it's oh yeah, that was fake propaganda coming from either Russia or Ukraine. This is wartime. I forget where it comes from. The saying that the first casualty of war is truth, or something along those lines. In terms of if there's a war going on, there's going to be propaganda coming out both sides nonstop. And so half the time I see a headline, I'm oh, okay, that's interesting, or a story on the internet in terms of, oh, this happened, with this side, you see this crazy thing Ukraine did or Russia did. I'm okay, if that's true, cool, I guess, or oh no, that's awful, I guess, if that's true, but I really don't know if that is true, and I'm having to sort of guess every piece of news I hear coming out of there until everything is verified. It's just kind of crazy, but...
The only sad part is all the innocent that actually die for a decision, and everything that is out of their hand is all political, and they don't deserve what is happening right now.
Exactly. That is the one thing I can absolutely say is, I don't stand with any of these governments, really. I stand with the people who are having, either the people who are being invaded and having their homes destroyed and all of that, or the people of Russia who are, their government is doing this and they don't want any part of it. It's the people who are being harmed in this, the mass casualties, all of the death and the horrible parts of war. So you have these governments fighting it out. Putin seeking to invade. Zelensky has his own agendas. I don't know what to think of him, because on the surface he seems like, oh yeah, he's this great war hero saying all these great things, but then also there's some sketchy stuff about him when you start looking into Zelensky. I don't trust any of these politicians or any of these governments, but my heart absolutely goes out to every single person who's suffering through this, because war is hell, and there is, all the heartbreaking stuff that you do see coming out of there that is eventually verified, because, like I was saying, there's so much fake stuff coming out, but all of the death and the casualties, it's horrible to see people on the ground sending in their stuff, and seeing reporters now from the States. There are those, someone from Fox News, I think there are 2 people from Fox News who were killed, and another American who was killed while out there. It's crazy to see that sort of stuff happening. It's hitting home for people in the States, but crazy to see all the people in Russia and Ukraine who have been suffering through this. So that's the one thing I can absolutely say is it's just heartbreaking. No one ever wins in war. That's the bottom line.
Exactly.
Except for those who profit from it and who never have to actually fight. I'll say that. They win in war. Those are the real winners. Those who can.
And after that, you finish with like a country that is completely destroyed for what? At the end, what you will have in your pocket. It's only like the people on the head that will have something, but the people on the bottom,
exactly. Nothing. You get the whole military industrial complex. War's great. It's profitable. You can make some money, and you send people off to die, or you have people who are suffering because the war is happening in their backyard. So, you know what? I think bottom line, war bad. Let's not do war. But war is here, so it's tough. It's tough. What can you do?
Don't go to the backyard. Go by the front.
Oh, I guess so. Oh man! All right. You know what? I'm gonna move on here, looking at our headline, because there are a couple. I know. One final headline on our little list here before we go into some chats. A reminder to people: if you want to send some chats, I'm seeing a few popping up on my phone there. Remember to send in your chats. We'll go over those in a minute. There's one other thing on our list here of headlines to cover. An Ontario high school teacher, I saw this person on actually their original tweet, who's under investigation for opposing critical race theory. And that's kind of, that's interesting to me. It's kind of crazy, especially when we're seeing in Ontario. I did a video on this before about them passing Bill 67, which is essentially institutionalizing critical race theory in all of our schools. But yeah, that headline there. So this Ontario school teacher who's under investigation for opposing critical race theory, she essentially was, like, I saw the tweet of her being under investigation essentially for, I think she was just teaching her students that guys, racism is bad and don't discriminate. And, I just want to scroll down a little bit on that article there. Yeah, for Marks. Yeah, so she said, this is what teachers in Ontario being investigated for nowadays. We're going to load up the tweet right there. And yeah, so the things that she was saying, let's see here. Can we zoom in on that? I want to read this out. Let's see. Kids aren't in school to be indoctrinated with critical race theory. So she was being critical of critical race theory. Schools should be nonpartisan, focus on modeling kindness to everyone, and speak out against any form of discrimination. You see, this includes discrimination brought on by anti-racist movements, i.e. all white people are racist, etc. In some places, example Britain, it is now illegal to teach CRT without offering a balanced opposing view. And she posted a YouTube video entitled "Teachers Presenting White Privilege as Facts are breaking the law," warns minister, in which a British member of parliament named Kemi Badenoch states, among other things, that critical race theory is an ideology that sees my blackness as victimhood and their whiteness as oppression. I want to be absolutely clear, this government stands unequivocally against critical race theory. We do not want to see teachers teaching their white pupils about white privilege and inherited racial guilt. And let me be clear, any school which teaches these elements of critical race theory critical race theory as fact, or which promotes partisan political views, and it goes on. I mean, I would agree with that. sort of thing, teaching white people that they are inherently privileged and that they should have inherited guilt, teaching black people they are inherently oppressed and inherently victims. I mean, that is what critical race theory teaches. I think that teacher is 100% correct. And it's kind of absurd to the point we've gotten to where when you speak out against racism and saying including racism being taught as a part of critical race theory will get you investigated as a teacher in Ontario. I mean, that's sort of where we're at because critical race theory is considered the doctrine of the day. But I mean, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, of this teacher being under investigation for speaking against critical race theory to her students, speaking critically of critical race theory?
So my only point of view in this is like at school, yeah, you can teach something, but at home, you get teach something else by your parents. It depends on what is your environment, where did you grow up, what is the mentality of the people where you grew up with. If at school everything is white and with flower, and like we're not talking about the real thing, you coming back home and you just say like, why you have like such a big gap, and that make the children don't understand the life. We need to teach the history as it was, to mention that it should not happen again, and everybody is equal and everybody is like the same human being. But a fact is a fact. History is the history. Yes, white had privilege in the past, and black people was slave. And I know because I've been to Africa and I saw this jail and I saw this story about like the slavery, and it was a fact. We cannot ignore that. And I think it's just like something that we need to teach like children, whatever like people are against or whatever. But it's something that you need to know. It's the history. What we will just like wipe up like everything that happened in the past and just say, oh, you know what? Everybody is equal and everything. But no, in this story, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It's not really far away.
Yeah.
It's a couple of years ago.
No, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, because the teacher here speaking out, I like where she says that like schools should be nonpartisan. And they should be, if they're teaching critical race theory, they should not be presenting that as objective fact, because that's sort of part of the day. And the critical race theory itself, as in they teach you that they oppose, they say the idea that treating everyone equally is actually racist, and that you need to favor people of color and treat white people worse, essentially is what they're saying. Teach them that they have inherent guilt and that they should feel guilty. That's what critical race theory is in this.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I just learned something.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's sort of the thing. So the teacher is speaking out against critical race theory in terms of she's saying that this new curriculum that we're bringing in here is teaching students that it's all about that racial equality is bad and they need to fight for racial equity, which means they have to like uplift people of color and push down people who are white because inherently there are these advantages and disadvantages that we need to take action to. Yeah, that's essentially what it was. So this teacher who is speaking out against this, they're teaching critical race theory, which, yeah, like I was saying, teaches you that if you're born black right now, you are inherently oppressed and you won't be able to make it somewhere in life as well as someone who's white because you will be disadvantaged. I mean, that's what they're teaching in these schools right now. And so this teacher was speaking out against that and saying, no, racial equality, guys, is what we should teach. We should teach that no matter the color of your skin, you are equal, you have the same chances, the same opportunities, and we should just treat each other the same no matter what race you are. That's kind of what we fought for all throughout the civil rights movement, right? So she's speaking out against this sort of woke ideology, and now she's under investigation for that, for sharing these videos. And so... But
at the same time, it's when you actually point color of skin or whatever, I think you make an emphasis on what it is. I think we should just not... It's kind of really like sketchy, especially like I would not want to be a teacher for that.
Yeah,
I think I prefer to be what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just because you don't know how will be the reaction of the children. Whatever you say, it will be capped differently because we are not the same person and we think differently and we will see everything differently too. So whatever you will say, it will be probably understanding differently.
Well, yeah, and that's why I just think it's also so important to teach a wide range of views to kids, right? And like not teach them a single ideology as if it's objective fact, right? To like, give them a lot more context and teach them, all sides sort of thing. Tell them the other side of the story, as we might say.
Story, yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. And it's concerning because teachers like this, like if they share something like that, like she's under investigation for speaking out against teaching a certain, sort of woke leftist ideology there. It's essentially what it is. And so, I mean, that's just something concerning. And that's an Ontario high school teacher. Because in Ontario, I interviewed Belinda Karahalios, who's an MPP in Ontario, the other week to talk about this new bill in Ontario that's being put forward. That's essentially making critical race theory the objective fact they're teaching in schools, which is this. I would say it's an inherently racist doctrine they're teaching these kids and teaching them. Yeah, that because because your skin is this certain color, you are more or less than someone else, and it would fine people for subconscious racism or for speaking out against the bill and stuff like that. So that's something I'm concerned about. You can see that video and sign a petition at stopcrt.ca. Tell you to go check that out. Petition launch.
But you see, she's under investigation, okay? But I don't know if you remember in December, the show in the French show at home. The teacher was with two children that was from the school, and they have been teach that unvax have less privilege, and we need to punish them, and we need to remove their right and everything. She's not under investigation for doing that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and that, like you're saying, that was sort of the new discrimination of our times, was the segregating of the vaccinated, the unvaccinated, the not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt based off of their own medical history or anything like that. There is no such thing as medical privacy now, or medical individuality, right? It's like saying everyone, no matter who you are, no matter what your medical situation is, you need to take this vaccine. And if you do not take this vaccine, you are a terrible, evil person, and we need to put you down. We need to coerce you. We need to take away all of your rights until you give in and take this shot. Yeah.
But that's all right to teach.
Exactly. Oh, that's encouraged. That's good. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that is your news of the day. We got less than 10 minutes here left on our hour, so I think it's time for some chats.
Yeah.
What do you say we take a look at what the people are saying? So, go ahead. Oh, I'm reading this first chat here. I'm also going to recover the earbud that just dropped out of my ear so I can actually hear you, Alexa. Yeah, we're back at it. So we have one from Mikisa. End tyrants' plans by avoiding the use of mobile phones. Go old-fashioned, make in-person events that all including unjabbed and unmasked, can attend regularly and post ads for them on street polls. You know what? I'm always for doing some old-fashioned stuff, dropping the technology. That's the thing about our day. It's like it's impossible to escape being tracked if you didn't want to be tracked. We talk about the worries about the QR codes and that sort of thing, but it's like this thing I'm carrying in my pocket here, it's got a microphone, it's got a bunch of cameras, it's got a GPS in it, it's trackable by so many means. If someone wants to find me and I've got this on me, by all means, and stuff in our cars and our computers and everything, it's like we are in a full digital age now where, and even if you didn't carry your phone, everyone else around you has phones, and there are cameras everywhere on every street, and there are satellites everywhere. It's like this sort of thing where even if you really wanted to get out of the way, it's tough. It's tough to escape the digital world in which we're living. It's kind of a reality.
But in the same time I'm for coming back to the old-fashioned, but in the same time that brings so much people together. Yeah. And it's why we were able to tell the other side of the story, because we had news coming from everywhere. Yeah. And that was not come from a mainstream. Imagine no tool for knowing what is going on in the world, only the mainstream. That would be horrible.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like it is all of these amazing new technologies that have allowed us to have alternative platforms and that sort of thing, to have that sort of innovation and to get your information elsewhere. I mean,
and now,
yeah, exactly.
Being,
I guess our
being there and talking.
Exactly, going in person. But yes, I am all for putting aside the technology, going old-fashioned, Be nice to escape to a cabin in the woods and hold some covert meetings. Be fun. I'm all for it. All right, same person here, which I always forget, Mikisa, Mick3 Canada, CA, you know, however you say it. Maybe send us a note sometime how you want us to pronounce that username. $1 again. Does anyone know how to modify TVs so that Trudeau doesn't focus people's attention on Ukraine versus Russia? I bet in mandated digital ID and microchips are being invented behind the scenes for all. I'm not sure what you mean
I don't know.
by modify TVs so that Trudeau doesn't focus. I don't know about that. I mean, the thing is...
Probably so some people are able to break through and have like, I don't know, I never did that.
Yeah.
But some people I know that do it, but
yeah, I see what you're saying.
not personally, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, focusing people's attention on Ukraine versus Russia. Yeah, I mean, everyone's tuned in the TV. They're all tuned into the news, all distracted. And that's the thing. It's like you can divert people's attention to wherever you want. Like we were saying earlier, you can point them to hate whoever you want and I'll hate this person now, go, and everyone will just go do it. Or, oh, everyone look over here, put all your attention there, and they'll just do it. It's pretty incredible, the powers of mass media and the way we can control people that way in terms of think this, do this, put your focus in this place, and then what's going on in the background, you know? Like what sort of legislation are we pushing through at home while we're all focused on the war? Or, you know, the issues that were the biggest on the news cycle one week, they just instantly disappear. The next week it's all about something else. Those issues still exist though. So something to keep in mind, folks. Something to remember. And like you're saying, digital ID, we were talking all about that. About the push in Quebec and digital ID, it's here, guys. We're living in this digital world. So what next? You know?
Yeah. That scared me more than everything else that we passed through since the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Because afterwards, what everybody would know, like where I went, which person I see, what did I buy, which fine or debt I had.
Yeah.
No, it's not okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And it's like we have a whole host of privacy laws for a reason, right? And I mean, and they told us especially like, oh, you download this COVID app and don't worry, everything is going to be totally private, or get your QR code. Don't worry, we're protecting your privacy and all your private information. But then we had all of these massive data leaks and people hacking in, getting people's private information and all of that. It's like, no, really nothing is private now. And even when your government promises you privacy, of course they're going to violate it. And then when they promise to protect your privacy from that of others, they show that they're incompetent and they're not able to do that anyways. So kind of no matter what.
You know the example that what Eric Kerr gave for like the numeric like identity.
Yeah.
He said that, oh, but if children go and buy some beer, it would just scan, and the person in the cashier will know his age, his birth of date, and his name. I was like, that's not a good like. It's like the cashier doesn't need to know my birthday. They doesn't know to know like how old I am, my name, at least not even where I'm living.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you want to go and, go to the liquor store and buy some beer or something, right? It's like you choose to go and show your ID to them. But if you're at the gas station, you decide to buy a pack of cigarettes, you choose to show your ID to go and buy that pack of cigarettes. But if you don't want to, you don't have to show your ID and buy the pack of cigarettes. You can go there and buy a bottle of water and not show any sort of ID and keep that information private because they don't need to know that information for you to buy a bottle of water. So that's the thing there is soon everyone can know everything because the information's out there. Yeah. So like you were saying, we got another chat here from Sisser2, $2. Why ban Russian media? What about Russia's side of the story? Is Ukraine involved with the WEF, Schwab, Freeland communism? Were there biolabs in Ukraine? And is Hunter Biden involved in these biolabs? Well, that's a lot packed in there. Why?
Yeah, I was like, you have a lot of questions there.
Yeah, so I mean, why ban Russian media? The way I feel about this is it's a great way politically to sort of virtue signal in terms of like, yep, we stand with Ukraine, we're against Russia, we're going to ban all Russian media, you know, because we're just so virtuous. We're going to do our part. You know, we're not actually going to join the war, but we're going to help the information war. We're going to ban Russia because Russia's the aggressors. So it's time to just ban all of their media. So that's one thing. It's just a good way to virtue signal. But number two, I think it's a great test run to start the censorship. I mean, if you can begin censoring Russian media because that's something that will win you political points, why not go ahead and ban all Russian media? Because, you know, what's next if after Russian media you're banning, I don't know, Rebel News or anyone else who you
It's
don't
what I
like
was thinking.
It's like, you know, so I think it's a great first step for them in terms of their censorship to just be like, look, we're banning Russian media. We're doing such a good thing. And well, we already banned all Russian media. Why not ban the other media we don't like? And if they can find some excuse to do it, they will. And then, you know, Russia's side of the story, it's true. I mean, if Ukraine's propaganda can get out there, why not Russia's? Like, it seems, yes, clear, Russia's the aggressor. Yes, Russia's the bad guy. And by Russia, I mean Putin and the Putin government, I suppose. But what about, you know, Russia's side? It's true. Why not let people actually hear that side if they want to, even if they go in eyes open, knowing, yes, Russian propaganda exists out there. That's what it is. I think all people should be able to access that. And as far as is Ukraine's involvement with World Economic Forum, Schwab, Freedom, Communism, honestly, I'm sure there is. I can't, you know, I don't know details myself, but I imagine all of these leaders, I mean, we know Zelensky is involved with the World Economic Forum like every other world leader. It's just what world leaders do. They're involved with that, but and then biolabs, we know that's real. Is Hunter Biden involved in the biolabs? I don't think anyone can know that. I'm not sure we could say. I don't think anyone does know that. But yeah. Anything else to add, Alexa?
You actually say everything.
Yeah, I think I hit those notes there.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more chats here. Can you see the chats, Alexa?
Yeah, I can see on the
screen. Yeah, how about you read this next one?
Is not it lovely that spring has sprung? Warmer days are coming. Enjoy. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
That's great. Yeah, well, we're diving into all the dark, deep stuff going on in the news cycle. Guys, at the very least, spring has sprung. Warm weather is here, as we were talking about earlier. Go out, enjoy some sunshine, considering you are somewhere that has nice weather. If your weather sucks right now, my condolences. But if your weather is getting nicer, get out there, enjoy it. Spring's here. It's a Friday. It's a beautiful day. Don't let the bad news of the world get you down. You know what? There's no point doom scrolling and looking at poor headlines and thinking, oh man, the world's coming to an end. Nah, you sometimes take a breath, disconnect, enjoy where you are in the immediate moment, and enjoy some nice weather. You know, grab some people you love, have a good Friday, you know?
I was with, you know, Guillaume, like my colleague, and we were talking this morning, and we were like, oh, it's so nice outside, like it's really warm, and he say, oh, and he answered to me, I'm just waiting for like the next snowstorm. I say, don't give me like bad news. And I watched the meteo, and we have a snowstorm that's coming.
Oh man, yeah, that's how it goes here. The next snowstorm will come, but before the next snowstorm hits, enjoy the sunshine. That's my proverb for you today, people. Enjoy the sun before there's more snow. That's
exactly.
Keep that in mind. Nugget of wisdom. And then one final chat here from Kushi1124, gives us $5 and says, I think the other comment was speaking to using VPNs where you can get content from other countries because location features are disabled. Great coverage, folks, as always. Well, I appreciate that, and actually that's enlightening. I think that is, I'm like, manipulate TVs. What do you mean by that? Or modify TVs, but that makes sense.
VPN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could.
But you need to pay for that, though.
Yeah.
You need to pay, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah, I do like to make use of VPNs. They're great for privacy and for if you do want to access country-specific content. I'm not sure if a VPN would allow you to access Russian stuff. Like, I imagine it very well might. I don't know, but that is a good question. It's something to look into if you're really hard bent on accessing Russian stuff that's been banned by Canadian government. I mean, I can't imagine it's too hard to still access it if you really wanted to go check out what's being said on, you know, say they end up banning RT's website or something and you want to go look there. I'm sure a VPN could help. So, yeah, thanks for the comment there.
I thought that for the internet they didn't ban yet. They only really made TV.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they have actually banned any internet stuff. It's really more virtue signaling because I don't even think RT was being broadcast, like Russia Today. like, were they even really broadcasting on Canadian channels? I don't know if they were, but
I don't think so.
yeah. But yeah, so if they do end up actually doing internet bans and you really wanted to access Russian media online, I'm sure you could just use a VPN. But hey, VPNs are solid stuff. Actually, I think it's who was it? I think it was Atlas VPN. I think was one of our sponsors. With Andrew says, go check out one of Andrew's shows. He had a VPN sponsor. There's a code there. Not remembering off the top of my head. I think it's Atlas VPN. You can go check that out. Andrew says TV. Give our man Andrew a shout out. But I think, unless we have any more chats there, we're at the top of the hour. I think that's it. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Alexa, that is an hour gone by talking about the news of the day. Some gloomy stuff there today, but I think I would leave us off on the note, as we were just talking about, don't get sucked too much into the bad news or the doom scrolling or worrying about all the terrible, evil stuff going on in the world, because we live in a very fallen, evil, miserable world in many aspects, but also there's a lot of goodness out there. There are a lot of great people. There are a lot of good things. Yeah. Stay optimistic. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy your Friday, people. And we will catch you next time on the Rebel News Daily live stream. We do air every single weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at noon Eastern time. So make sure to tune in next time. I believe that'll be on Monday with Sheila Gunn-Reid and Adam Sos, our two primary Alberta reporters. So that's a good one. Get your Western coverage out there. And I think they talk about more than just Alberta, but our 2 Alberta reporters on Monday at noon. And until then, get out there and enjoy some sunshine, folks. We'll catch you next time. Good chatting with you, Alexa.
Hey! See you next time.
Were there any large donors that would have stuck out, that would have raised red flags in terms of perhaps trying to influence the outcome of this protest?
We did not discover that, no. Mr. Chair, as we reviewed the donations, we did not identify significant donations or patterns that were there. I believe Ms. Wolford might know the largest donation that we took on the campaign from a non-Canadian source.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, thank you, Juan, and thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, what I would say is actually the largest donation in this campaign was from a Canadian, and it was in the amount of $30,000. I don't have the information.
That's the largest donation.
That was the largest donation, yes.
Okay, so we're not talking about $1 million donations that flowed in that try to influence events in Canada.
No, that's correct.
Okay.